Hey, everybody. Welcome. Episode 12. Yes, episode 12 of the SportsLogos.Net podcast. We've done as many as, I think, Friday the 13th movies at this point. I am Chris Creamer from SportsLogos.Net, joined as always by our minor league baseball expert and podcast co-host, Paul Caputo. Thanks for joining us here. We have a fun show this week. We have some Armed Forces Day caps in Major League Baseball. We're going to talk about the Yankees and their new John Sterling Memorial patch. And of course, we will be joined by Paul with his minor league minute. And we'll talk about where we were on a certain day. This one a little more recent than most. But before we get into this episode, I want to know, how are you doing, Paul? What's going on?
Chris, I'm doing super well. Back from a little road weary at the moment. Just completed about 4,200 miles of driving back and forth across the United States. That was not intentionally planned that way, but saw some baseball and got to see our lead story in person. Actually, the Armed Forces Weekend uniforms that Major League Baseball was wearing this year, or at least their caps and socks that they were wearing, not full uniforms necessarily. And because of my baseball travels, I am the proud owner of my very first ever camouflage jersey. It was a giveaway at the Tulsa Drillers game, and I have never owned a camo thing before, but it was a giveaway. It was free, and you know how we are at baseball games when things are free, Chris.
Oh, yeah, we get very excited. And I was going to ask you why you didn't just fly. Like, I was going to make some crack about, they invented airplanes. The Wright brothers are very proud of this. But now I realize this was an opportunity for you to visit some, I like to call them random baseball stadiums across the
Yeah.
country, stadiums you otherwise wouldn't have even thought of visiting. But now here you are, you're in the city, and you're getting free Tulsa Drillers camo t-shirts.
And they brought out food. The general manager welcomed us with open arms, and they had their chef whip up a special meal for us. That was incredible. It was a wacky trip. Got to do some fun stuff, and stayed at the home of designer Dan Simon of Studio Simon, who
Oh,
created the Savannah Bananas
nice.
logo and many others.
Well, speaking of the Savannah Bananas, and look at me
Yeah.
tying this all together. First of all, today is my son's 13th birthday. Happy birthday. My little boy is now a teenager.
Oh my gosh.
And one of the gifts we got him was a Savannah Bananas baseball set. So he's very excited that he's got Dan Simon's logo on his backpack, and he was out in the backyard this morning hitting baseballs off a tee,
I
just
think that's
having the
amazing.
time of
I
his life.
I gave my niece my Savannah Bananas cap because as much as I love Dan Simon's work, Savannah Bananas, I'm wearing logos from actual baseball teams. That's not a
Ooh,
shot at Banana Ball. But
ooh,
Banana Ball is not baseball, and they don't claim for it to be baseball.
ooh.
And so I thought that it was appropriate to hand my Bananas hat off to my niece. Chris, how about us? We are so off topic already. Why do
There's
we
no
even
such
do?
thing as off topic at the SportsLogos.net podcast. First of all, the opinions of Paul Caputo do not represent those of the
Mm,
SportsLogos.net podcast.
yeah.
The Savannah Bananas, please do not send any angry emails to me. Send them right to Paul.
I have no objection to the Bananas. I've seen a Bananas game at Rickwood Field, and seeing a
That must
Bananas game that one time was enough. It was great. I'm glad to have seen it. They don't like the comparison to the Harlem Globetrotters, but they're the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball. I still am not entirely sure why they don't like that comparison, but they don't. They don't like that comparison to the Globetrotters.
say it right now. I want to quote from Paul Caputo that
Okay.
Banana Ball is the same as pro wrestling. Go.
Banana Ball. See, I think there is actual competition, right? Because
Mhm.
they keep score, they keep funky score. It's the scorekeeping is different. It's who wins each inning, and then the last inning is different. So you could win an inning 10-1, and you only get one. I guess we'll call it a point. I don't know if you would call it a run, a point, or a run.
Well, it's
Uh,
not baseball, Paul, so it's not a run.
it's right, exactly. So, it's genius. I'll tell you that it's genius. Uh,
Absolutely.
but I
I
also
love some
don't
of the
think,
rules they came up with.
yeah,
Some of those rules, I think minor league baseball, major league baseball should take a look at. And I know people might be screaming at this, but I love the ball four rule where if you walk a batter, every person on the field has to touch the ball
yeah,
and the runner can run as far as he can until you get that
it's
done. I think that's amazing. That makes a walk from the most boringest play in the game to probably the most exciting play.
It's very entertaining to see that, and the way they strategize, how that works is really funny, and to see it in action, I totally loved. Like I said, I enjoyed the trick plays, like these fly balls where they're doing backflips and still catching the ball. Like it's incredible. Like the athleticism is incredible. I wouldn't go as far as professional wrestling because I don't think it's scripted. So there's still actual competition. It is fun, but I just like don't see myself wearing this bananas cap that I gave to my niece, and she was psyched because she's 12 and she's all over TikTok, and she's like, "Yeah, I know what that is," and she like wore the cap to dinner, like she was psyched about it. So
If anything, I would wear the logo just because I think it's a fun logo.
it's a
That's all it takes for me.
it's a fantastic logo, and I don't know how many people know the origin story that team before they were playing Banana Ball, they were just a collegiate summer level team in the Coastal
Yeah, they
Plain
were
League.
like a legit
Yeah,
team in a legit
yeah, yeah, yeah.
league, right? Yeah.
And then they were both. They were both. There were two different Savannah Bananas teams, and then people were buying tickets to go see the Savannah Bananas, the Coastal Plain Leagues team,
Hmm.
and not realizing that they were just seeing like regular baseball. And so they would get there and they were like, "What was this?" So then that team extricated itself from that league and just became the global phenomenon that it is now.
It's going to make for an interesting movie or documentary someday.
Yeah.
It'll be a fantastic
Yeah,
story.
yeah. I
Um,
think that happened on one of my very early episodes of the Baseball by Design podcast was
mhm.
with Jesse Cole talking about the Savannah Bananas, and it was before they had really launched into the whole like banana ball thing. So I think a lot of people find that episode of my podcast because they're Googling the Savannah Bananas, and then they listen to it, and it's just us talking about like the logo because it was a logo for a team and not a global phenomenon. So anyway.
Is Brad Pitt going to play you in the movie?
No, in fact, I go running with a friend. His name is Chris, and the two of us together, we do look like actors from Moneyball, but I'm more the Jonah Hill character, and he's more the Brad Pitt guy. So I think Jonah Hill might play me in the movie.
Well, I mean, I think you got an Oscar for that, so nothing to be ashamed of there. I'm going to try to steer this back on topic,
Okay.
which is typically your role
Oh,
in
sorry,
our.
Chris. Chris,
So
let's talk about
I
Armed Forces Weekend.
I feel all grown up now because I'm like I'm going to steer this back on topic.
Uh,
Armed Forces Weekend, yeah. So really, from our perspective, Armed Forces Weekend, I have no attachment to Armed Forces Day here
yeah,
up in Canada. Armed
yeah.
Forces Day weekend in the U.S. coincides with our Victoria Day long weekend, which is
Okay.
when we go outside and set up the back deck and invite people over for barbecues. I guess it's kind of like your Memorial Day.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
like the unofficial start of summer.
Okay.
So I think up here it's more, why are the Blue Jays wearing green caps today? It doesn't make any sense for us. Now, you mentioned you were at one of the Armed Forces Day games,
Yeah.
and I'm curious, in the US, you're in the stands, there's
Yeah.
no like big announcement like
Mm-mm.
hey, they're all wearing green caps for Armed Forces Day weekend. Do you like hear chatter in the crowd or people like why are they wearing green caps? Is there
Yes.
any yes?
Yes.
People don't know what's going on.
Right, right, precisely. Because it's the week before Memorial Day, right? Like, so
Hmm.
it looks like something that you would see on Memorial Day. I mean, on this road trip that I took, we stopped at a gas station and there was a young woman outside and she was lowering the flag to half mast. And I was just like, why is the flag being lowered to half mast? And she's like, Memorial Day. And I said, it's not Memorial Day. And she said, then I don't know. So, yeah, I mean, it was, and I'll talk more about this on, later on in this
Mhm.
episode teaser. But there was this question of just like, okay, like what's going on with the olive caps out there? I have to say, Chris, I absolutely love, and I know that you did this on purpose. The article on SportsLogos.Net about this, the header image has the Armed Forces Day logo, and then it has two baseball caps, the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Toronto Blue Jays. And I
Yes,
know you
sir.
didn't just do that because it was the World Series matchup from last year that that you thought there was something funny about U.S. Armed Forces Day Toronto Blue Jays themed caps.
I wish I could admit to some sort of a nefarious plan there. So yeah, when these articles come up, I have to choose a couple of sample images, and when I don't know which ones to pick, I just pick whatever the World Series was last year. And
Oh,
once I go through that, I just go to what two teams are the hottest right now.
mm,
Or say for like 9/11, maybe New York and
hmm
Washington, or I try to find some sort of a theme about it. And a quick story.
Yeah.
One year, I think it might have been for 4th of July, way back, maybe a decade ago, and I picked Cleveland. The Cleveland Indians were on a bit of a winning streak at the time. And I thought,
Hmm.
okay, I'll pick them as the header image for the for whatever this holiday was. And I put it up, and I think it might have been like Chief Wahoo with like camo all over him or whatever it was back when they were still doing that. And I got an email from someone in the greater industry saying, "You trying to make a statement by choosing that as the photo? Wouldn't it be more appropriate, say, to pick, team X and Y?"
Right.
No, no statement. They're on like a 10-game winning streak.
So you weren't, so you didn't do that on purpose. If you were choosing the hottest team in baseball, you might have gone with my Phillies at the moment. They're playing some good baseball finally this year.
You fire the Canadian and you suddenly start winning.
But in general, I have two observations about the holiday themed caps. One is it's impossible, and we see this from the comments on the article that you wrote. It's impossible to have any opinion on these caps, these uniforms, without it feeling like you're making it political, right? Like you can say, man, the Phillies sure looked weird in Pittsburgh wearing olive green hats with their road grays, and you're anti-American or you're anti-military or whatever, right? Like so you do have to tread carefully in these conversations. And then B, when I pick a baseball cap, and you can see I have a number of baseball caps behind me, I generally try to pay some form of attention to what does this look like with what I'm wearing. And applying these holiday themed caps, not just the Armed Forces Day or Memorial Day or 4th of July or whatever, but applying these holiday themed caps across the board unilaterally without concern for what do the players look like wearing these uniforms creates some pretty jarring uniform combinations out there on
Mhm.
certain days.
It's what happens when you have one company designing the caps and one company designing the jerseys.
Mm,
And I guess they're not talking to each other, but New Era is responsible for designing the holiday caps every year.
yeah,
Nike is responsible for designing the jerseys every year, if they're not even doing special holiday jerseys anymore.
right.
But when they were, and I think it was Majestic doing it at the time, they didn't work really together. New Era would make one design, Majestic would make one design, and at the end they'd be like, "Here we go, and let's hope it works. And if it doesn't, we'll make a tweak here and there." But New Era is not. They don't care what the uniforms look like, right? They're just
Right.
here's template A, here's template B. Let's hope it works for every single team. If not, oh well.
Yeah.
It's an increase in sales, which is great for us. Now MLB donates their proceeds to the military causes, but I don't think New Era does. I'm not sure. I've never seen any note about that. So, but going back to your point before about this doesn't really match with the uniform and all that. I remember you telling me a story where you went to Coors Field to see the Phillies play the Rockies,
Yeah.
and you saw a fan from behind wearing a red cap, and you went up
Hmm.
to be like, "Hey, my city of brotherly love friend here," and then it just turned out he was wearing a 4th of July Rockies cap,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
which is embarrassing for you and embarrassing for him too, because the Rockies
Yes.
shouldn't be wearing red caps.
Because his
Uh,
Rockies got eliminated from the playoffs in 2009 while he was wearing that hat. And I thought he was, a brother in
a
arms.
Philly, yes, exactly. And that's. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't like that. I don't
Yeah.
like when teams look like other teams. I don't like when teams wear colors that have nothing to do with their team.
Right.
I am perfectly fine with teams paying tribute to the military
Sure.
and armed forces members and all that.
Or moms
Absolutely,
and
they should
dads or
be.
whatever.
Yeah, exactly. They should be paid tribute to. Like that's
Yeah.
great. It's kind of a nice tradition. And like
Right.
you go back through baseball history and there's examples of teams wearing tributes to armed forces and service members and all that, during World War One, during World War Two.
Yeah.
We see stars and stripes designs and all that. The White Sox, famously wore a stars and stripes version of their uniform back in like 1917. Like we're
Yeah.
going back over 100 years. This is nothing new. However, it feels a little less special when every single team is wearing the exact same design. I love the idea of teams coming up with something unique to them. This is something that we feel is our way of paying tribute to the armed forces service members. And then you get like a situation like the Blue Jays, where now they are paying tribute to the armed forces members in Canada during a weekend which is not Armed Forces Day weekend in Canada.
Right.
And, at least MLB and or New Era have altered the Blue Jay caps in order to pay tribute to the Canadian branches of their military. There's only three maple leaves under the brim instead of the six stars on the US ones.
Mm.
They put a Canadian flag on the side of the cap, which is nice. But this weekend is not a weekend to specifically honor active armed forces members
Yeah.
in Canada. And on Monday, the teams are presumably wearing patches, poppy patches for Memorial Day. And in Canada, we wear poppy patches in November.
Mm.
That has nothing to do with what is just going to be a random weekend at the end of May for us. And I was kind of disappointed that we didn't wear poppy patches on November 1st when we played Game
Right.
7 of the World Series. It would have been
Yeah.
cool. It's the only time a Canadian team has ever played a game in Major League Baseball
Oh.
during the month of November. And hey, we got the poppy patches. Just slap them on. What a good story that would have been.
Well, I'm sure you were super pleased then to see the Welland Jackfish unveil their Canada Day uniforms that they'll be wearing on July 1st with the Canadian Mountie themed uniforms and the leather strap and the holster with a hot dog in it.
Well, see, yeah, I don't get the hot dog holster. That I don't get so much. The rest is fun and very minor league. But why does my Mountie have a hot dog for a weapon?
I think they were just thinking, what are we going to put in a holster for a minor league baseball uniform?
What about a baseball bat?
So, to borrow a line that you used once that I really enjoyed, it's not like this snuck up on anybody, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
not like Armed Forces Day was a surprise and all of a sudden they were like, oh crap, we got to design one thing and apply it to every team.
Hmm.
Is there ever the possibility that, like, New Era or whoever's doing the caps would say, okay, we're going to create themed hats and give teams options, right? Like, so maybe the bill and the crown are different colors, or like, maybe there are ways that teams can look at each of these and say, okay, that's the one that's going to match best with the thing that we're wearing that day. Rather than, I mean, one of the other things that was odd in Pittsburgh for me when I went to the Phillies game there was they were wearing the same hats, right? Like both teams were wearing the same hats, right? Like, and
Yeah.
they have different colored uniforms, and so that's okay. But it just visually, as a baseball fan, someone who likes the aesthetics of baseball, it created a weird aesthetic for me.
Well, especially in a matchup where, like the Pirates versus the Phillies, where you have two color schemes that they don't go together at all, but they look great when they're up against each other, right? Like
Yeah,
that black and gold of the entire city of Pittsburgh,
yeah,
the red, white, and blue of the city of Philadelphia. And you point out all the players are wearing basically the same cap on what MLB is branding as rivalries weekend. And it kind of, it's rivalries weekend, but we're wearing the same caps as each other. Is it
yeah.
really a rivalry, or is it we're all together in one? Is it you mentioned can New Era come up with different designs and then teams can pick, A, B, and C. They used to do that. That used to
Mm,
be what they did for 4th of July. They would say, here's a version of the cap with a red visor. Here's one with a blue visor. Pick whichever one you want. I remember the Giants used to always avoid picking anything blue because they don't want to look like the Dodgers.
mm.
See, there's a rivalries weekend right there. We
Right.
don't want to look like our rival at
Yeah,
all,
yeah,
even though the Giants aren't playing the Dodgers for rivalries weekend, but that's another story. But then they stopped doing it. Like
yeah,
you would see half the league would be wearing red, half the league would be wearing blue. I made the whole league-wide cap visual and it looked pretty cool because you have red, white, blue, just sort of looks like
sure.
the American flag going all the way across. But now it's just everyone looks the same.
Yeah,
And in a perfect world for me, it would be each team would like almost like a city edition or city connect in baseball.
yeah.
They would say, hey, this is how we want to pay tribute to the armed forces. New Era, go ahead and make this for us, and this will be what we wear every single year on this day. But you don't sell as many ball caps that way, right?
Right,
Like it's
right,
not a new
right.
design every year. It would make things a lot more special for each local market and might give each team a chance to, city connect their local armed forces branches,
Mm,
like so
yeah,
like San Diego, imagine San Diego, right? Like with
yeah.
their
Oh, yeah,
their presence and Washington with their presence. And Toronto has the old forts left over from the War of 1812 when we battled the United States and all that. Like that would be a cool kind of story to tell. And in a way like minor league baseball does their alternate identities, you can now tell each local market's local military history and honor their active service members. But it doesn't make as much money.
One note about the themed hats that I always think about this when I think about teams wearing odd one-off uniforms is I always think back to Nolan Arenado hitting for the cycle, and on the last play, the walk-off winning hit of that game, he got bloodied because of a collision or a slide or something, and he stands up and he's yelling, and like this iconic photo of Nolan Arenado bloodied game winner hit for the cycle, and he's got the powder blue Father's Day hat on. Right, and it's like this signature moment for this franchise, and then he's wearing a powder blue hat, right? Like so,
And now the team can't use it in anything,
right,
right? Because it doesn't look like a Rockies thing. Like Derek
right,
Jeter, right? He got his 3,000th hit, I believe, wearing some sort of commemorative cap. I think it was the
yeah,
4th of July red cap or whatever.
yeah,
It's just,
I know, it's weird.
come on. Quickly, to wrap up holiday, though, I just want to say bring
Oh,
back Mother's Day caps, please.
ah,
We, my family went to the Mother's Day game in Toronto last weekend, and we were all excited to see pink caps, and we didn't get them.
no pink caps. And
No
if you
pink
were
caps.
excited to see Alec Boehm doing anything for Mother's Day, he's suing his parents right now, and he did not wear any pink, whereas everyone on the Phillies was wearing other pink stuff. So Alec Boehm made a very pointed decision to not wear pink for Mother's Day.
I feel like that's, by the way, that's a great Mother's Day story. And second, I feel like I might have just contradicted myself by saying, don't have everyone wear the same cap, and
Yeah,
then at the same time plead for every team to wear the. Look, I'm a complicated person.
that's
Uh,
true. These are nuanced situations here that
that's
they
right.
don't
This,
have.
this is why I'm not making decisions over here. So
Chris, we got a lot going on this week. We didn't talk about it last week because we had Andrew on. We were talking about NFL uniforms. So this week, this is news that we would have covered last week, but we're getting to it this week. The Yankees are wearing a John Sterling patch. John
mhm.
Sterling passed away, obviously very sad at the age of 87. They've got the Yankees have a patch with a microphone and pinstripes. I don't know. It's a sort of complicated looking patch, but anyway, yeah. So John Sterling and his patch, you covered that on the site.
I did, yes. And the John Sterling patch, John Sterling, an iconic voice,
Yeah.
right? And I keep going back to the Blue Jays here, but during last year's playoff run with David Ortiz and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., sort of mimicking and or mocking John Sterling's
Mm,
famous Yankees sign off.
yeah.
Duh, Yankees win,
Right.
Kind of a bit of a sour note to that now that John Sterling has passed away,
Right.
but so iconic that, rivals are referencing it.
Sure.
But this patch, I think the first tribute the Yankees did was great. The JS on the ball caps, that was a nice little sort of on the fly. Let's pay tribute to him. We're not at home, so let's quickly put something together. That was
Hmm.
fantastic. They stopped wearing that cap patch on Monday of this week because they're back home after a long road trip. And this patch, which looks like it was sort of quickly designed, not necessarily by someone who is familiar with the basics of graphic design.
Hmm.
And
It's
I
very
don't
gently
say that
stated.
right, and I don't mean to be insulting. It's just that there are some decisions in this that someone who's been trained in graphic design would have never allowed to happen. I thought for sure, and I mentioned this in the article, that this was just something that was quickly made to post on social media to announce that yes, we're going to do something, and then they'd clean it up when they start putting the patch on the uniforms, and they did
Right.
not clean
Right.
it up. They had a week and a half to develop this patch, which is
Yeah.
a long time to make a memorial patch.
Yeah.
If you look at the logo, you'll notice, John's name arched across the front
Yeah.
in this, it's a serifed font
Yeah.
and is arched nicely until you get to the end of his last name, when suddenly it starts to arch, not quite following the path of the arch.
Yeah.
It's harder to do that than it is to do an arched name.
Right. Right. It
So
looks like they placed each individual letter because the
I,
ER of Sterling doesn't follow the same baseline.
yeah,
I mean,
I think instead of like following an arch path that a designer would have used like in Illustrator or whatever, and
right.
just, did that arch pathway, this is why I'm saying I think it might have been someone without, quite the training of a graphic designer. They just dragged every letter one by one and tried to make an arch
Right.
using their eye.
Yeah. And it didn't work.
It did not work.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that whoever worked at the embroidery place might say, "Hey guys, heads up,"
Like,
unless
let us
they're
just
scared
reset
of
this for you.
correcting the
Yeah.
Yankees.
Yeah.
Maybe John Sterling had some sort of love for not properly arched lettering, in which case, yay, that's a fun tribute. But I can't imagine that's the case.
I thought it was odd, like the Yankees logo over the microphone, and the microphone. I don't know if that's clip art or like whether that looks like every other like podcast logo microphone, but like they just sort of like slapped the Yankees logo on it and not exactly centered or even like angled to make it look like
Mhm.
it was on the microphone. Like that was the thing that jumped out to me. I mean, your comment on the typography is spot on, but the fact of the Yankees logo being in this patch twice, and it's not that big a patch for, to have the same logo in there twice. And then the way that Yankees logo is sort of integrated, or rather not integrated with that microphone. Yeah, I mean, just sort of looks sloppy and quick and, you know, fine for social media, but needed to be tidied up before it actually ended up on a Major League Baseball uniform, especially in New York.
George Steinbrenner would never have allowed such a thing. Let's be honest.
George Steinbrenner, famously a stickler for typography.
But let's point out that it's great the Yankees are paying tribute to this because this is a
Right.
very important part of Yankees history, and it's sometimes it's easy to forget broadcasters. These patches usually are reserved for uh, players or managers or ownership, and rarely do we see tributes to play-by-play guys,
Yeah.
which for the fans are kind of like the our access point into this team
Yeah.
is through these broadcasters and are a crucially important part of our experience of being fans of the team. So,
Yeah.
despite the patch having some odd design decisions, fantastic tribute, and sorry to see John go. As much as I am not a Yankees fan, I kind of liked his sign-off call when the Yankees won. It was just part of what made baseball special, and it's a shame to see that he's gone. I wish they could have worked in his sign-off call on the patch somehow. That would have been fun.
The Phillies wore an HK patch. It was just a black patch with the letters HK in white when Harry Kalas passed away in 2009. They still play Harry Kalas singing "High Hopes" at the end of a game. When
That's great.
when the Phillies win a game, as you're walking out of the ballpark, they're playing Harry Kalas singing "High Hopes." Uh,
Let's hear it, Paul. Do it. Do your best, Harry Callis, doing high hopes.
Listen, nobody wants to hear me singing. I tried it last week; it didn't work, but it's always fun for fans. I'll say, listen, after a couple of Yinglings and a cheesesteak and a Phillies win, you'll hear me belting it out at the top of my voice in Citizens Bank Park.
I'm hoping you were walking out of PNC Park the other day, just belting that in front of all the Pittsburghers.
Do you know what Philly fans were doing as we were walking out of PNC Park? Was they were doing the Eagles chant,
Oh, geez.
which is a very odd choice. Okay, Chris, there's a lot of stuff going on the website right now. If people want to read about it, Ohio State added a stripe to their uniform. Buffalo Sabres have added ads to their uniforms. The Professional Women's Hockey League is expanding. Are they going too fast? And not up on the site at the time of this recording, but likely will be soon. The NHL Winter Classic Stadium Series has logos that you'll be writing about. So folks should go check out those stories on the website. We have a new segment though, Chris, that I wanted to get to, which is we have people commenting. When we post on social media, the podcast is available on YouTube as well, and people are commenting there. And so I wanted to see if there were any comments from users, from listeners that stood out to you.
Yeah, sure. So if anyone else wants to share their feedback, we'll read it on the air, I guess. We'll read it on the airwaves. We'll read it in the cloud
There you go.
for,
We definitely
just
read every comment.
yeah, I read every comment. Just comment on our YouTube version of these videos and we'll read it. Let's go back to that episode we did a couple weeks ago with Maury Brown talking about potential MLB expansion. And I
Yeah.
have user Paul Jarski 7977 here who said that he absolutely does not want another franchise in Major League Baseball at extreme altitudes such as Salt Lake City and repeating the Coors Field issues all over again because, and Paul says here, pitching at altitude bastardizes pitching
Mm.
as breaking pitches don't perform with the lesser air resistance. Hitters at extreme altitude benefit from pitchers' arsenals being handicapped and from additional distance on their batted balls. The Angels AAA affiliate in Salt Lake, the team will often try to skip having top prospect pitchers pitch there just because of that situation. Please, please, please consider the integrity of on-field product. Do not pick Salt Lake City. What do you think about that, Paul? I mean, he does raise a good point, but I also don't feel it's fair to an entire fan base that they
Or
don't get
time
a
zone.
team or a time zone. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That they don't get a team simply because of how high up the mountain they
Yeah.
are. Someone who
High.
lives in the mountains, Paul, what do you think about that?
Well, it's not, first of all, it's not as high as Coors Field. It's Salt Lake City is 4,300 feet of elevation. I looked that up. So it would be, the same issues, but less so. I would like if people are going to mention minor league baseball affiliates, let's get their names. Salt Lake Bees are out there in Salt Lake City. They have a great logo. But yeah, I mean, I think that they've done a pretty good job of mitigating these issues with the humidor and rubbing the balls down and all that sort of thing in Colorado. But I wonder if the Rockies are ever going to compete again because it's such an odd version of the game here. And like when the Phillies play here, I always hate seeing if one of their, prospects is going to be pitching or something like that. And they've done a pretty good job. I've actually seen those humidors, Chris. I did a tour of Coors Field and that was cool to see those. But I think it's a point. It's a reason I would object to a team in Mexico City. Like Mexico City, I think is like
Yes,
7,000
that
feet, right? Like,
that's way higher than Denver, right?
yeah, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
2,000 feet higher than Denver. So I think it's a good point. I don't know if it's a reason to exclude Salt Lake City just because they're doing it in Denver and they're trying to make it work, and Salt Lake City would be Denver, but less so.
You can't, I don't think you can have a team in Denver and then say no team in Salt Lake City,
Right,
right? Because
right,
Salt Lake City is lower down than Denver. It doesn't make
yeah.
sense to exclude one or the other. But if the humidor is working in Denver, then I see no reason why let's not just do it in Salt Lake City. And if anything, I talk about this all the time. If anything, to get that beautiful view that we saw from the stadium rendering, I don't care what it looks like. I don't know enough about the science or anything. There's no way to control, air pressure or whatever, right? Like putting the
Hmm.
game in a dome, that doesn't do anything, right? It
No,
all
I
has
don't
to
think
do.
you could like
Yeah.
pressurize a dome.
Yeah. We could pressurize a dome. It just might not be safe for human life.
Right, right. And I don't think you could keep that pressure with people going in and out of the ballpark.
Let's put the Rockies in a vacuum stadium,
Yeah,
vacuum sealed,
play on
and
the
see what
moon.
happens. Play on the. I object to a team on the moon for
All
that.
right. Well, the travel cost would be a lot.
Moving on to the episode we did last week with Andrew Lind, which I love that episode. Andrew came on and discussed NFL uniforms that he'd like to see changed,
Okay.
a compendium to his series on the website.
Yeah.
We have a comment here from Michael Walker, who's been a commenter on my site for decades. It's nice to hear from Mike again. He says the simplest fix is for the Saints to just fix the old gold. I agree. Stop wearing gold, black, and black. He goes on to say, we were talking about, Paul, you brought this up, that asking about if the Dolphins ever actually wore the helmet that we see their dolphin wearing in the logo. Mike thinks that there was a team in a movie in the 1970s that wore a plain M on their helmet to represent a team from Miami. One of these movies that could not get the rights to use NFL logos. He says he doesn't remember the name of it. It sounds plausible. I believe him. And finally, for the New York Giants, he wants to go back to the Bill Parcells uniforms. Just make sure to include blue and red on the away sleeves instead of a single one color stripe. I agree with Michael on just about everything he says there.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to piggyback that with J Big 65, who first of all says it's cool having a podcast on these articles. Thank you.
Thank you, J Big
But he
65.
Thank you. But he disagrees with Michael. He likes the Giants in the Super Bowl 42 jersey with gray pants, red socks, and no blue on the jersey. I respect your opinion. I just disagree with it. I think the Giants need to have blue on that uniform somewhere.
Hmm. I like
Sorry,
the
go ahead.
comment about the Dolphins helmet with the letter M on it being used in a movie because I love watching movies that will try to contort their, branding that they can't get licensing for, on screen. There's a great episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia where the guys are going to the Phillies World Series game and they make a whole big joke out of the fact that they can't have the fanatic on on their show, and so they have a character called the Frenetic, which
There's an old like French Canadian TV show here that I used to come across flipping through the channels late at night, and it was about a pro hockey team playing out of Quebec City, and it was very clearly based on the Quebec Nordiques
yeah.
uniforms, but they just changed the igloo logo on the front to like a very pronounced N
Oh,
instead of like the igloo.
yeah.
But what would happen is they would cut to in-game action, and you would clearly see that it's just the Quebec Nordiques with the no effort whatsoever to change. I can't remember the name of the show, but
That's awesome.
all right. This last comment we got from that same episode from @Kilo1 on YouTube. I feel the same way about the Sabres goat head uniforms as Andrew feels about the Bucks creamsicle uniforms. The Sabres have achieved a perfect balance in fighting the right modern look while retaining a good old style as a throwback. But I'm in the minority from those who I've spoken to. The Sabres should not go back to the goat head look because their current primary uniforms are the best look for them. And I agree again with this commenter. As much as I love seeing teams wearing throwback uniforms now and then, I really don't like it as a regular part of their set when it does not match their current set whatsoever. It's really hard to like one day in his example here, the Sabres are wearing blue and gold that their fan base fought for years to bring back. And then every now and then they're going to wear black, red, and silver, and they look like a completely different franchise with no tie whatsoever. If you didn't grow up in that era, you don't care that they're wearing this. Pick one and stick with it. You know, at least pick the same color scheme. Like if they went with a blue and gold version of the goat head, wore it as their alternate jersey, fine. Let's do that. But it's very jarring to have two completely different color schemes being worn regularly at all times. It just doesn't work for me. And the Buccaneers, as much as I love their creamsicle uniforms, just because they're so different in terms of colors, they do not match their current set at all. Like it doesn't work.
At
What
least
do you
they're
think,
not
Paul?
all wearing olive green helmets, irrespective of what color their uniforms are.
Well, give it time. Veterans Days during the NFL season. Now that every team's wearing, remember it was only one helmet per team was allowed. Then it was two. Now it's three. Now there's a rivalries uniform. There's going to be a Veterans Day uniform coming up. You just know it.
Well, Chris, that's fun, and I love hearing comments from folks who are listening. And yeah, thanks for listening, and let us know what you think.
Yeah, and if you want your comment read on the show, just go ahead and comment on YouTube, or you can comment on the Twitter post or whatever.
Mhm.
We'll find it. Don't worry. We
You
see all
even
these comments, and we appreciate you sharing, and be a part of the show. Think of it as your way of calling in.
oh, and you post the articles on the website too, with the links, so you can comment on those.
Yep, that's right. And Paul, this is new. We now have a podcast section of the website.
Very cool. Yeah, you sent me that link. I love that. You can listen to every episode on the website.
SportsLogos.net/podcast.
Very cool.
Paul, it's that time of the week again. You need to get your fix. The twitching is getting more pronounced every week. It's time for the Minor League Minute with Paul Caputo.
It's the Minor League Minute with Paul Caputo. Paul Caputo. It's the Minor League Minute with Paul Caputo. Paul Caputo. It's the Minor League Minute with Paul Caputo.
I'm quoting all over the place here. I feel like we cheated a little bit because we were talking about the bananas earlier in this episode. But yeah, I'm ready to go, Chris. If you want to,
You snuck that right past me.
I
With
know.
stories of Dan Simon. I didn't even realize you took advantage of the fact I gave my son a bananas backpack for his birthday.
Yeah, I apologize about that. I used your own kid against you there, Chris, to talk about minor league baseball logos.
All is fair. All right, Paul, I got the stopwatch here ready to go. My finger is on the button. On your marks, get set, go.
All right, Chris, we're going to be talking about the Double-A affiliate of the Atlanta Braves, the Columbus Clingstones. They unveiled a fun alternate identity, the Columbus Scrambled Dogs, which is an alternate identity based on a local delicacy that was made popular at the Dinglewood Pharmacy. It is hot dogs chopped up into chili with green onions and cheese and all sorts of ingredients. This logo was created by Mike Jones. It was his very first ever minor league baseball logo, and his story is as much fun as the logo itself. It was unveiled on the day that, one, he was starting a graphic design conference that he runs, and two, his first ever grandchild was born, and he had to be at the press release for this logo, and it was just this incredible day. He has a ball that the team gifted to him with all of the player signatures on it. He's going to give it to his grandson. The Columbus Scrambled Dogs. That is your minor league minute.
First of all, there's no way Dinglewood is the real name of that pharmacy.
Dinglewood
right?
Pharmacy, since like 18. They've been around forever in Columbus, Georgia.
Second of all, is that, I'm looking at the logo right now, and it looks like a hot dog taking a bath in gravy and
chili.
It feels very poutine-ish, which I resonate with. But he's holding up a spoon. Is he taking is he taking a bath, and that's like his back scrubber, or is he like holding the spoon in triumph, like he just hit a home run?
Right.
Paula, I need answers to this
Is that
question.
the spoon that he is using to eat the chili that he is himself? That is the problem with anthropomorphic food, for sure.
Well, so this logo is either extremely dark and has a real terrible story, or it's a logo in celebration of, you know what, this is a hot dog that's celebrating the birth of his grandson. That's how I'm going to look at this.
I think, yeah. And this is like, I mean, this is a thing in the South, like these pharmacies, soda fountains would serve these things. You can get scrambled dogs at lots of different places in Columbus, Georgia. I was in Columbus, Georgia before I knew about this phenomenon, and so I did not try it. It has cheese, onions, oyster crackers, pickle, mustard. Like, I mean, it's a lot of flavors. There's a lot of strong flavors fighting with one another. I think it comes with a free dose of Pepto-Bismol. That's how come it's at a pharmacy.
Oh, well, I was gonna say that it's fitting that a pharmacy serves what they then need to treat. It's a good way to keep your customer base going.
It's a good business model, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go, Chris. That is your minor league minute, the Columbus Scrambled Dogs. Now we got to get to Georgia and try this, I think.
I might just make something like this today. I don't know. I have like I was mentioning, we had Victoria Day weekend up here. I had a big barbecue yesterday in celebration of my son's 13th birthday, and I have about 15 barbecued hot dogs sitting in the fridge that we didn't get to. So I feel
There you go.
I can scramble dogs for the whole family tonight.
And then off to the Dinglewood Pharmacy for
Off to the
heartburn
Dinglewood
medicine.
Pharmacy. Yeah, there goes our clean rating.
Uh,
What a run we had.
we did. We tried. Okay, I'll update the settings on Apple.
Oh, and just speaking back to that barbecue we had yesterday, and I feel this is a uniquely visiting the Creamer house situation. So, my son had some friends over and all that, and they got into a water balloon fight in the backyard, and they quickly needed a change of clothes, which they did not bring, which means they got to raid my son's closet. So now we have local children here from middle of nowhere, Canada, running around the backyard wearing like Florence Flamingos t-shirts and
Fantastic.
Hartford Bouncing Pickles t-shirts. And I figured like this is a very uniquely Chris Creamer house visual.
That is pretty great. Speaking of the Florence Flamingos, I actually saw the water tower as I was driving between Cincinnati and Columbus, Ohio, different Columbus, on my cross-country road trip this past week. So I saw the water tower.
Y'all?
The Florence Yalls. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, I saw that on my drive down to Florida, and I was extremely excited about it. And my family, they wanted to go back to sleep. So
I tried to take a picture of it, but it was raining, and I was on the phone, and we were navigating some turns, and I may have driven some people off the road, but I got a blurry picture of that water tower.
totally worth it. The Google image search couldn't generate such a photo like that.
Chris, this leads into the "Where Were We" segment for this week.
So I see it on my show notes here.
Yeah.
Spoiler, we do use show notes. Don't judge us. But you want to talk about where you were way, 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 way back. This is going to take some thinking for you to try to remember where you were back on May the 16th in the year 2026.
Yep.
It just feels like yesterday we were in 2026.
Rack your
Paul,
brains
I
here.
want to know, yeah, where were you on May 16th, 2026? I think that was a Friday. We got to look that up.
It was a
But
Saturday. I remember because I have a photographic memory for calendars. I'm one of those people. I can tell you that May 16, 2026 was a Saturday.
all right, well, where were you? I got to look up where I was, but go ahead.
Chris, as has previously been mentioned on this episode, I recently did some driving in the United States of America. And as I always do, I always plan my driving. If I have road trips, if I have work trips, if I have friends and family trips, I'm going to find a way to get to baseball games. I had never been to PNC Park in Pittsburgh. I had been to Three River Stadium there, but I grew up watching games in Veteran Stadium, and so I might as well have just gone back to Veteran Stadium because that's what Three Rivers was. PNC Park lives up to the hype. I was there for Phillies versus Pirates, just an absolutely spectacular ballpark. And I'm choosing this as my where were they, just because for me, it was an iconic moment for me as a baseball fan to finally get to see this park, which many people say is their favorite. I hear that, or I hear San Francisco as like the best, ballparks in Major League Baseball.
Philly's up there too. I did Citizens Bank Park a couple of years ago, and I
Philly
really
has
liked it.
a very nice ballpark, lots of amenities, great concourse, great food, that sort of thing. But what both San Francisco and Pittsburgh have that Philly doesn't quite have is the view, right? Like
Mm.
sitting there, the yellow bridges, the Three Sisters bridges, named for Roberto Clemente, which is of course the bridge that's right outside the park there. They've also got Andy Warhol and Rachel Carson with the Three Sisters bridges there. Just a classic environment for a ballpark. The food, pierogies. I had the Primanti Brothers sandwich, which was incredible. That's the one with the coleslaw and the French fries, and like the kind of like the Greek style like gyro meat. But then this game, Christopher Sanchez pitched a complete game shutout with no walks and 13 strikeouts. That was pretty incredible. I would say at least 40% of the fans were Phillies fans. That percentage increased over the course of the game because the Phillies won 6-0, and Pirates fans were sort of filtering out over the course of the game. Just a really signature, iconic baseball moment for me. It was really super fun, and I'm glad to have seen that ballpark. People couldn't have been nicer. Icy Light is terrible, terrible beer. Thankfully, they also had Yingling, so I was able to enjoy that. And then we made the drive back to Philadelphia, completed the cross-country road trip. By the way, 8 days from Colorado to Spokane, Washington, back to Colorado, and then Colorado, Tulsa, Louisville, Pittsburgh, Philly. It was quite a 4,200 miles that we had. Didn't kill each other, which was great, and gained probably about 10 pounds in road food and ballpark food. It was capped off by just a signature moment on May 16, 2026, a storied moment in Philly's history.
Gained 10 pounds in road food, but also gained a lifetime of memories, Paul. And I'd like to point out that look at you, the pro, did all that traveling, didn't miss a single episode of the podcast.
We have had
That's
to record
amazing.
on Tuesdays instead of Mondays the last few weeks to accommodate my schedule, so I appreciate your flexibility with that. But we got all of our episodes in on time, except for one that was like maybe a couple hours late.
That was the special Andrew Lind episode. So, and it was twice as long as a normal episode. So, I really don't have an interesting story about where I was on Saturday. My daughter was at a dance competition, and I just sat around the house. But I did go to PNC Park last summer,
Mm.
which I've mentioned earlier on this in an earlier episode. My son and I went down. The Jays were playing in Pittsburgh, and to go on your point about the people of Pittsburgh just being fantastic, what a great experience dealing with their fans down there. We got taken on a personal tour of the stadium by one of the Pirates' biggest fans down there. I believe his name's Noah. Pirates fans might know who I'm talking about. And that also involved my son and I getting called up to the top of that ramp over there in the left field corner for the seventh inning stretch, and we got to wave the Jolly Roger flags with the two pirate cosplayers up there during the seventh inning stretch. And what an experience. And the fact that, we're head to toe in Blue Jays gear,
Yeah,
and they still said, yeah, absolutely, come be a part of this.
amazing.
And what an incredible accepting atmosphere. I loved every second of it. Even after like seconds after that flag waving fun we had, there was a brawl on the field
Oh
between
no.
the Pirates and Blue Jays when
Oh,
Tommy Pham got upset about the walk and flipped his bat, and then
Oh, yeah.
there was a whole fight. No one knew what was going on, why there was a fight after a walk, but everything was great there. We went all 3 games. They had a great deal for people looking to go to games in Pittsburgh, where you could buy an upper deck ticket, and it came with something like $20 in food credits.
Oh, wow.
So we
Yeah.
sat up in the upper deck completely empty for like a noon game.
Hmm.
And then we used that food credits to go and we got the all drink as much as you want in a day pop and just filled that up throughout the day. There's nobody in the upper deck. We moved down, sat behind home plate for the last 5 innings of the game and enjoyed unlimited pop. And it cost us like almost nothing. So,
Amazing.
and the view, the stadium, the fans, the atmosphere, the food, everything about going to a game in Pittsburgh is fantastic, top notch. It's what a baseball game should feel like. And especially taking my son who had only ever seen games at a ultra modern stadium like Skydome, indoors, artificial turf,
Yeah.
to now going to a state, like just the fact that it's open air,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
is mind blowing. And like there was rain during
Yeah.
the batting practice. So like we're standing outside in the rain during a baseball game, which is not something that we ever get to experience.
Yeah.
But fantastic. Go to Pittsburgh. If you haven't been to Pittsburgh, go to Pittsburgh. The entire city of Pittsburgh is fantastic. I love it. It is very, very underrated as a destination. I am pro Pittsburgh. I've always been pro Pittsburgh. Go Pittsburgh, go.
I will, that's cool. And it's a great city, fun food, really fun people. It was rivalry weekend. There's a rivalry between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh being 2 major Pennsylvania cities, but they're not in the same division anymore. So there's the emotion of that rivalry is lessened. It's not like the Flyers and the Penguins who genuinely hate one another, right? Like this
Well,
is
and Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like a 6-hour drive. Is that right?
is 4.5 hour drive, but
4.5.
Pittsburgh is really very Midwestern. And like, I didn't even react to you calling soda pop because, you're in Pittsburgh. It's very much pop country. Philadelphia feels more like a Northeastern city. Pittsburgh feels more like a Midwestern city. So even though they're in the same state, they're at the far ends and they have very different feels about them for sure.
Well, like Pittsburgh could very easily be like absorbed by like Ohio or West
Yeah.
Virginia.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know I shouldn't say that, but like it feels more like that. And it feels like rivalry weekend for the Pirates maybe should be more like if Cleveland wasn't there, like they could have done it with the Reds or they could have done
Right.
it with the Guardians or
Yeah.
more. And where the Phillies, I feel, are more like New York, Baltimore, Washington. It
Yeah.
feels like 2 very distinct places for a rivalry to exist.
Rivalry weekend is really like, let's find teams geographically close to one another. I mean, the Phillies rivals are the Braves and the Mets, right? Like those
Yeah.
are, if you want to have like the real sincere interdivisional rivalries, nobody in Philadelphia thinks of Pittsburgh as a rival, right? Like, so
Yeah,
part of the problem is like the Mets and the Yankees, right? Like there's
right.
so anyway, that's
Boston,
a whole other,
Atlanta, right? That it was Red Sox, Braves.
all I could think was that, like that those maybe because those teams were both Braves, like that's
Yeah.
why that
So
was
for those fans who were alive when the Braves played in Boston, which that what they moved in 1954.
right.
So 72 years ago. If there's somebody out there who remembers the Braves in Boston, you might have gotten a kick out of that series. But
Yeah.
unless the Braves are wearing B caps, like instead of the camo caps,
Right.
I don't.
Yeah.
Stop it. What are we
Yeah.
doing? And the
Well,
Jays and the Tigers, a lot of people up here are like, we have no rivalry with Detroit.
Yeah. Yeah. Colorado
Bring
and
those
Arizona, that
back
was
and
like
that'll solve that. Yeah.
nobody in Colorado is just like hate those Diamondbacks.
Seattle versus San Diego.
Oh, the Eddie Vedder series.
The Eddie Vedder series, the battle of teams with no other rivals.
Chris, I hate to say this, but we are out of time for that Bridgeport
Oh.
Islanders story. We'll get to that next week, I guess.
They're going to start sending emails to us. We might be getting charges against us, like some kind of harassment.
But hey, this has been fun, Chris, and we'll see you next week at our regular recording time. Now with all of my crazy travel over,
Yeah, well, we'll see. I might throw you a curveball coming up.
bring it.
All right, Paul. Have a good one. Thanks, everyone, for listening in. See you next week.